Okay, we're not going to play Kahoot today. I know you're saying that. I know. You probably all studied up on it when you sit. Okay. So we have some great people here, though, who work with our senior population. If you look at statistics in the United States, and maybe Dean will speak to this, I'm not sure, we're aging. We ourselves will be in that position one day, too. We will be putting our parents in facilities, and there's lots to think about. And so Dean is here, Pastor Dean. He's served as chaplain of Pines Village Retirement Communities for 9 of his 31 years of existence. He's a partner with the team providing holistic care for independent and retired residents. His part is encouraging spiritual growth, which he'll speak about today, through Christian worship services, Bible studies, counseling, and visitation. We also have Jamie. Oh, there you are. Jamie Henry, one of our parents. She's a speech therapist at Life Care Center in Valpo. She served the senior population for the last 6 years there. She earned her undergraduate from IU Bloomington, master's from Rush. She's worked for 12 years in a hospital setting, home health, and now long-term care and rehab. She's a parent to, as I said, Cole and Chase. Liz Engel is here as well. Liz is a nationally certified activities director at Valpo Care and Rehab. She served for it's been 39 years, almost 40 years. Long time. She's been involved here at St. T's quite a bit with Cafe Manna. They actually donate the food on the the fifth Thursday, so twice a year.
4 times a year.
Is there a question?
Yeah, hey, Ken, but I just got a text from my son in the 8th grade, says they don't want a teacher right now.
Where?
The 8th grade across the hall.
Over in the math building.
We don't have a teacher.
You don't have a teacher. Okay.
They're over here volunteering.
Eighth grade or ninth grade?
That's the 9th
That's
grade.
the 9th grade?
Yeah. Thank you. We'll go get a hold of Chris right away. And then Tammy Ginger has her own home health care service where she actually goes into homes to help. So, no, I'm going to because I'm going to have Dean come up. So Dean, if you come up, and the other 3 of you would come up to the table.
Well, it's great to be here with all of you here today, and just thank you for the privilege that I have to share with you a few thoughts about the spiritual growth. I first wanted to introduce myself a little bit more to give you kind of the context of who I am and what I do, and being a pastor actually for about 26 years, 4 different churches around the Midwest. The last one was Washington Evangelical Free Church here in Valparaiso. We call it the Mall Church. Because you got JCPenney and all those other stores going on. And I served there 14 and a half years before I felt called by the Lord to come to serve as chaplain at Pines Village Retirement Communities. And this particular Pines Village, it is a privilege to be there, knowing that we have people of all the different Christian denominations. When you think it's not just Catholics are there and host of all the Protestants. I myself come from what is known as the Evangelical Free Church of America, where I have my ordination. But I grew up in the Lutheran Church of America. I went to the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church. I've attended Baptist, you name it, I've probably been there. But when you think about the glorious thing that we have as Christians, is that we believe in Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. That was the founding principle really, that V&A had in forming, first of all, Whispering Pines. Whispering Pines is now a period, and if you don't know where that is, it's right across from Kennedy Mazda. They're on Calumet Avenue in Valparaiso. And Pines Village is the building behind a period. We are not a nursing home. Can you say that with me? You're not a nursing home. Thank you. If there's one thought I want you to continue, is make sure of that thought. One of the things that people sensed a great need, not only for a nursing home, for people, again, at that particular point in life where they really could not care for themselves, and others did not have the expertise to care for them either. But they sensed there was another growing population of retired people who still were independent, but there was a few services that they could enjoy. Like, how many of you would love to have somebody else do your lawn, clean your house, maybe even make you a meal or other such kind of things. But the whole point was there was a need for kind of a retirement village, and I believe we're the only retirement village currently in Porter County. Hopefully they'll change. There's plenty of growing need for it. But we're a nonprofit, and again, one of the great needs that we sense in nonprofit is that we needed a chaplain. We believe much more in the holistic kind of care, that you want to make sure that not only are you dealing with the mental and the social and the psychological and all the needs, but including the spiritual. So we really appreciate the VNA for their particular part in now forming Whispering Pines, which is now appearing, as well as our particular Pines Village. And we also have another organization called Meridian Woods, which is a part of us. We call them the really independent people. And again, that's not a nursing home, remember that. And neither are we, but it's one of the things that the fear of the older adults that you get into is they fear of being dropped off at a nursing home and left for dead. That is a huge fear. And one of the things that we combat when they come into it, they still think that we're a nursing home. And we have to convince them, no, you are independent here. You can make decisions on your own. We help you in different ways, but you're independent. Now, if you have a problem, and where you have maybe a fall or do something else, maybe then you'll have to get rehab at a skilled nursing, or you may have to go to a nursing home to stay, but we are not a nursing home. You are independent. And so when you think of all the different kind of services, that again, it's a convenient place for them, that you like to have a meal, you like to have socialization, you like to be challenged intellectually, and you like to have your house cleaned, and lawn maintenance and all these different kind of things are provided, plus a bus for transportation. There's all sorts of different things that they can choose. Again, they're independent to choose. But we have to recognize that there is a great need for these particular people, because they're going through the most drastic changes in their lives. Part of providing spiritual growth as the chaplain is to be there to help them go through the changes. One of the things that we do, as you had noticed on there, that we provide Vespers. It's a worship service. Again, the vast majority of people at Pines are Christians. The Catholic Protestants, we have one Jew. And that Jew understands we're Christian. And we do a lot of Christian things. And she's good with that, and so it's a wonderful lady. But we also have Bible studies, again, to stimulate the mind. If you're going to grow spiritually, you need to understand what God says through the Bible. So, provide 2 Bible studies already. One is on the Gospel of Mark, and one we're doing on Ezekiel, which we'll never do again. But we love to challenge them with, again, the intellectually and the spiritual part. We also, I do a lot of visitation. One of the things that you are doing when you are giving out the gift, your presence means so much. And I do mean you as a person. For you to spend some time and go out of your way, even to give a gift. Now, personally, I love chocolate. If you want to give chocolate to them, they love that too. Any kind of a practical gift. But keep in mind, the most important thing is that you're giving of yourself. You're actually showing them worth and significance. How many of you know everything and you wish some people would ask you the questions? These people, on the average age of 87 when they come into Pines Village. We used to have some people come in at 65, stay until they're 105. When you think of that kind of age frame, again, whether they were just retired and wanted to come, or whether there was a particular need that came up, again, they went through incredible changes, and they need to help be guided through it. So the visitation that you do is so key. It's so important for them to have that kind of significance. But also counsel with them a lot of the things of of just being with them and praying with them through it. These people are very important, have a very important faith in Jesus. He's their best friend. He is a good God. And they need Jesus more than ever. And that's the thing of being able to go through with them, just how they can, now they pray and appropriate His grace. And again, as you're celebrating the anointing, again, all that you can do is to, again, help them to get through it in faith in God. Their hope brings them the peace and receives the grace that they would be able to go on through. But let me share with you a little bit of the different changes that they're going through that necessitates the need all the more for spiritual care. When you think that you have moved now from owning a house to a small apartment, the largest apartment we have happens to be about 1,000 square feet. Your typical home, think about what size of home you have. Let's say it's anywhere from 1,700 to 3,000 square feet. Can you imagine going into a little itty bitty room? You have to lose an awful lot of stuff. Sell it off, give it away. A lot of memories. If you're hoarders, this is horrible. And so when you think of having to move into a place that, again, it's not your own. It's not your own home. They have to make it their home. That troubles the soul. And that's where, as chaplain, to help them, guide them through it. It usually takes anywhere from 2 weeks to a month for people to say, this is now my home. It takes a while. You know what it's like to move. And you know how hard that is. This is the worst move. Also, some of them, in fact, most of them, lose their driving. When you think that they are not going to be able to drive anymore, that's a symbol of independence. And so it's hard to convince them, you're still independent. You can still make choices. You can take the bus. You can have your family, friends take you anywhere. It's just not safe for you to drive anymore. And that's tough. I've been driving for 50 years. For me to give that up, of course my kids want me to give it up, but that's another issue. Physical health is deteriorating. I'm a grandpa, proud grandpa of 5 kids. These are great grandparents. And they are going through a time of, they're just not athletes anymore. They can't play ball. They can't do the variety of things. Their mind says, man, I could do this, and then they find out their body says, no way. You are not doing that ever again. So we struggle with them having a fitness center, making sure that they would maintain their physical capabilities. Oftentimes, if they do not get any kind of exercise, if they just stay in their room and read all the time, not getting out, not socializing, what we find is that if they ever have a fall, if they have some kind of thing happen to them where they have to go to rehab. And most of the time they come out of rehab, but we'll send them to Liz, healthcare, or the other places of rehab, and they know they may not come back. And so we stress to them, you need to exercise, you need to strengthen and keep that strength on up. And again, this is a very spiritual battle. How many of you can exercise every day? It's a spiritual battle. We also recognize that many of them have lost their spouses. They have about 160 residents. About 20 of those are couples. So when you think of, most of them have lost a spouse, and I would venture to say that they probably were the caretakers. One of the things you have to realize, being a caretaker, is that they often go before the person who needs the care. Tabby can speak a lot more about that one, but it just seems as if we have to watch out not only for the resident and help them guide through their struggles. If they've lost a spouse, there's grief counseling as well. But we have to take a look at their families and say, look, we're with you. And we're very concerned about their health as well. they need to also spiritually grow. This is a big battle. In fact, make mention of this one particular lady who is well known for saying, growing old is not for sissies. You have to be brave, you have to be daring, you have to be spiritual. You have to have faith in the Lord, and for people to come around you truly as a village of godly Christians. And so when we think about another change is, again, maybe losing their old friends in their neighborhood, in their town, in their church, coming to a place where maybe one of their relatives, their children, are now here in Valparaiso. It's a tough change all the way around. And this is, again, something that their soul has to work on through. It's very much a spiritual kind of warfare there. We also deal with mental changes. When you think of, how many of you have got great memory? Forget it, you won't. Memory loss is normal. You get into even more dementias, and of course you get into the feared Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and none of those things are fun to go through. One particular lady loves to say, she knows that she doesn't have the memory she used to. You can tell her one thing she's already forgotten. But she says, don't grow old. And she's a wonderful woman of faith, and that's the only thing that keeps her going. It's frustrating to have memory loss. It's very frustrating to their soul, and that's, again, is why we're there to help them guide through, to be with them, to be praying with them. And again, their soul is going through so many changes, drastic changes. It's the worst time for changes. And so when you think about it, I have a privilege as a chaplain to be there to help them through it, to help them pray through it, keep their faith in Jesus as not only a good friend, but a good God. And truly, for purpose and significance. When we think of your being there with them, giving gifts to them, it gives them significance. You're asking them the questions, they've already got the wisdom to share with you. It's a great position for them to be in, but they don't necessarily feel appreciated. Your visit, your gift, shows that kind of appreciation. When we think of the other thing that I like to provide them with is the sense of humor. Probably in our Pines Village, I'm known for my laugh. I'm not going to demonstrate unless I just break out. But one of the things that I had heart surgery last Christmas. I was off for 2 months. When I came back, they immediately knew I was back in the house when they heard my laugh. And one person even came up to me and just stared at me, and I'm wondering, what's the problem? She says, I'm waiting to hear your laugh. You need humor. That is a very spiritual thing, as the Bible says, is that laughter is a good medicine, and that does help out. Not in all circumstances, you have to know your difference, but you certainly, being able to, as you grow old, is to be able to laugh at yourself and be able to say, okay, this is a normal part of living. The Lord can get me through. And that's what we're here for. Your presence, your words, whatever gifts, whatever thing you can do, is to be there to help counsel them and comfort them all the way through it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. So we have 3 other folks here, and so you've introduced yourself and talked a little bit about what you do. So I'm going to move next to Tammy. So can you just introduce yourself and talk about how you live out our, anointing of the sick sacrament, and how you comfort the afflicted as a caregiver?
Sit here, or do I need to go over there?
No, you can talk.
Okay.
I think you can hear you.
I do better without a microphone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's right under control.
Yes.
Check it. To be sure. First of all, I just want to share, I love what I do. I love being with seniors. I have always loved being with seniors. It is a very special special time, and I'm so glad that Pastor Dean pointed out their frustrations. Because that is real, that is their reality. And acknowledging their reality and walking the walk with them is huge. But doing it joyfully, doing it compassionately, doing it reverently, and with joy is something so magical about it. And it is, senior wellness is challenging and fun. It is, I love being a part of that. We exercise, we go for walks, we chat while we're going to the doctor's appointments, we bring people to church. We're all over town when we're doing senior wellness. We are engaging in helping them cook at home if they can, or chatting while we're making a meal for them, while we're changing their bed linens, while we're doing light housekeeping. Every situation looks completely different one from another. There are no two family situations that are the same, no two individuals that are the same. So the dynamics of it, it's an ever-changing, ever-vibrant world. If we're doing our jobs right, and we're keeping up with their physical needs, when they need a shoulder or somebody to just listen, they're having a bad day, we can pull up a chair and not do one other thing, but give them our undivided attention during that time and let them unload. Sometimes they don't want to unload on family. So it's easy for them to unload on a third party, a caregiver, somebody else who is in there. A lot of joy in senior wellness. A lot of gifts in walking somebody's final last days. We talk about anointing of the sick. I'm in their homes most of the time. I work a lot with couples too, where somebody is taking care of another person. They're not able to get that spiritual part of going to church anymore. And if they're Catholic, they grew up knowing that they have to go to church every Sunday. And now they haven't been able to go to church because they're sick or their spouse is sick and they've had to stay home and take care of them. So sometimes I'm introduced to a family in the middle of a crisis. And that is such an opportunity to bring some spiritual compassionate love into their lives. Don't be afraid if you're with a senior or a family to reach out and bring services to them. Father Kevin, as you guys all know, he is awesome. I have never reached out to Father Kevin once where he has not, said yes and come into a home. And sometimes I have to say, Mike, would you like the anointing of the sick? Oh, I can't. I haven't officially belonged to St. Teresa's. And I haven't been to church in so long. I've been taking care, we haven't been, I tried to go to church, I've only gone there a couple of times. I said, that doesn't matter. That does not matter. Father Kevin doesn't care about that. We don't care about that. God doesn't care about that. He knows you're doing God's work, right then and there. So being that bridge to what somebody may need and bringing it into their homes is wonderful. Having Father Kevin or any religious person bring that peace that only can come from that spiritual experience toward the end when somebody is sick is a gift that we as people who are, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's somebody who is, working with them day in and day out, help people to bridge that experience, whether it's bringing in somebody from, to give them that extra guidance at that time, or the anointing, because it brings peace to them. It's scary. It's scary for them. It's scary for their families sometimes. I thought, how can I bring this to you guys so that you can understand? We all know the miracle of childbirth and the blessings that brings. End of life is a miracle too. We have sometimes birth, if you take away the miracle of it, it can be messy. It can be scary. The childbirth itself, it's a journey. It's painful. End of life can have some of those exact. It has the ultimate miracle. It's our way to eternal salvation, and that's what we're all about here. So helping somebody, through that process is huge, and helping families to kind of get there is awesome. So that's what I like to be a part of, and it's a wonderful experience.
Liz?
Well, I've worked for 39 years plus in the same nursing home. So I have a lot of experiences as Tammy does, but we usually get people at the end of life. So they're there and they know they're there to die, like Pastor Dean said. Like Pastor Dean said. So, Sue told us that we need to talk about the anointing of the sick a little bit. So I'm like the go-to Catholic where I work, because everybody knows I'm Catholic. So I'm explaining all the time to people, like, we have to have this because we know we'll go to heaven if we get this. So just tell me who needs it, and I will get the priest. Sometimes it's really hard. I've called to Cedar Lake to try to get a priest because you can't always get a priest. So being Catholic, I'm like, am I going to go to hell because I haven't got a priest for this person that needs it because they're going to die like in an hour? So that is stressful to me, but I do try to get the priest. Father Kevin is the best. He comes all the time. We've been anointing people that aren't Catholic, that maybe they were Catholic when they were kids and their family says they need a priest. So, that's a little touchy, but oh well, they get it. When I have Father Joe from St. Paul's come, I'll help him if he wants me to, but if there's families there, I won't. But like with Father Kevin, especially somebody that, the family says, you need to have the priest come. And then they're like in California or something, so we'll get the priest, we'll come. So we're alone, me, Father Kevin, and the guy that's almost comatose, dying. Father Kevin makes you put your hands on him. Put your hand on him, and then we do the whole anointing of the sick, but it's so wonderful because then even if the guy isn't alert or the resident isn't alert, you know that they're hearing you. And it's so surprising because they get the anointing of the sick, especially if they're that sick. You'll come to work the next day and they're gone. And I'm like, oh, thank God we got them the sacrament of the sick, because it's something that they probably would have wanted.
That's good.
And I'm Jamie, and I'm a speech therapist, and most people associate speech therapy with children, but I chose the other route because, as I call my children, I love my old people. So as a speech therapist, actually, I am blessed to only work 1 day a week right now, which is great because I have 3 children, and I like to be a part of their life now while I can and while they're young. Anyway, so we do speech, cognition, and voice disorders, and we also do the big one that you probably wouldn't associate with speech therapy is we do swallowing disorders. So at the end of life, a lot of the time swallowing function is compromised for many different reasons. Sometimes there's not even a good reason. So they're put on modified diets and modified liquids, which is very, very hard. They want water, and they want steak, and they want whatever they can have, and they can't. So at Life Care, which I never saw myself in long-term care, I said I would never work at a nursing home, but I do and I love it. It's rehab and long-term care. So you have to take into consideration if you're moving a family member into a facility, they might say, oh, you're sticking me in a nursing home, But no, we are 1/3 rehab and then 2/3 long-term care. So I love outside of Life Care, we have assigned I think rehab to home and counting for the year. Our goal, primarily most of our caseload is on the rehab wing. However, I do see many long-term residents along their stay is to get you home. That's our goal. And that's where I know we'll touch on this later, but if you're looking into facilities, you want to see how many people that they're sending back home. So a lot of times when the people come in, you have to keep reassuring them that you're here. Why are you here? You're here for rehab. You're here to get stronger. Your goal is to go home. That's our goal for you. And that's why I thought I would never work in the nursing home is because I was so, I wanted the rehab part of it, but I didn't understand that the rehab that you could get at a facility like ours is as good as it is. It really is intense. So Sue said, I'd like you to talk about how you live out your faith in your work. And I thought, well, it's my job. I was embarrassed, and I thought, wow, thank you for making me realize that, I'm sorry, my husband bet that I'd cry. I need to be a babysitter so I can come and watch you cry. My daughter's going to do good. I love what I do. I love working with old people, and I love getting to know them. I like asking them about themselves, and even if they're demented and they're confused, you form a relationship with them. Oh my gosh, I'm so sad. And you, even if they don't remember that they met you or they talked to you, you still make them feel like a person for that time that you spent with them. And you give them, you can talk about flowers or their children or whatever it may be, and most of them do want to talk to you. There are definitely the ones who are like, why are you asking me all of these questions? And they're like, what is this about? And I said, I'm just trying to get to know you, I'm sorry. But you really do touch their lives, and you make their stay easier, and you treat all of them like your grandparents. So I'm so embarrassed. But I obviously love what I do, and I wouldn't have chosen any other profession, so I'm, proud to say that. But I really do live out my faith when I go to work. So even though it's just one day right now, but I feel that makes me even more excited to go to work, and maybe less stressed than somebody that's there 5 days, but I feel I bring this good attitude, and I'm very cheerful and more willing, I guess, to want to try to encourage them instead of oh, you're going to refuse me again today. But anyways, so.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for inspiring all of us. So, I would have bet that Tammy would have been the person to cry, so that's interesting.
I should have warned you. My husband's probably texting people. Did she cry yet?
So some of the gifts that the kids are making in the classrooms include bingo prizes, vases with little paper flowers, placemats for their meal tables, or as Jane mentioned, maybe you can use it for the ladies who can get their nails done, put their hands on, it'd be nice, especially the laminated ones. Fleece lap blankets and birdhouses. So how do you expect that the seniors will be affected by these gifts that they'll receive? And I'll just open up to anybody who'd like to.
I put you on the calendar.
Yes, we are coming.
Catholic social, so only Catholics can come.
Catholic social.
But other people will come, but I put it on there so that they will come, because, the more alert ones, they don't come to every activity. If I would have just put it was a social hour, they wouldn't come, but Catholic social, they'll come. Like I picked up that Word Among You book today because I got a lady that hers expired yesterday, and for 2 weeks she's been wanting to know when she can get it, and I'm like, how come we don't have it? So I picked it up and I'm dropping it on my way home today so that she will have papers.
So that's Wednesday is when we're coming to.
Let me say that I actually don't even, you're probably like, oh, you're ruining this, but I don't even think that it's the gifts so much as the interaction.
The visits.
I expected somebody to say that, yes.
And I think another thing too is that even if you come and it appears that it's not being received, I believe that there is at some point any gift, whether it's your presence and conversation, whether it's a card that was actually delivered, maybe your family just next year is you're sitting around and you're going to do this for your Christmas project or Easter project, and you're going to make cards and you're going to deliver them, and maybe you're going to drop them off, and then the staff is going to deliver them. It may not even be the person, but when you sign it, Bobby from St. Teresa's, your son does, and maybe their family member is going to come and see, wow, they get a card, and it's obviously a little kid made this, and they're from a church. Somebody is caring enough to do that. Maybe it's their family member. It might not even be the person, but somebody is going to be touched by it. So even though you're a person that you may drop it off to, is not the one to, maybe they are not capable, because like Liz was saying, that, you know, sometimes there are people, are not in a phase to appreciate it, but when you leave it there, somebody's going to appreciate it, you know, with it too. And you can also do things for the staff that are working in these facilities too. Acknowledge the people in dietary, and acknowledge, you know, the people. There's little things that can be done for the seniors and the people who take care of them, so that they know that the work that they are doing is appreciated. You know, there's so many ways, and there's no doubt in my mind that everything and anything that you guys do is going to be like so awesome, you know, to somebody along the way.
Amen to that. Maybe I'm the lone Protestant here, but we love gifts too. And I'm sure that there will be other Protestants in here.
Oh yeah, they'll be
As I made mention before, the gifts are wonderful, but they are a symbol of something even more that you cannot see, and that's a symbol of love. You actually took the time to come there, to be with them, to give them something. You're extending love to them that they're not always visited by everyone. They're not always with family and friends all the time. In fact, some of them don't have any at all. And so this is a great demonstration of love that you can be doing for them. And you just don't know how deeply you will touch them. But it definitely is worth expressing love. The other thing is, I would call it the symbol of honor and significance. They are approaching a time in which, in fact, they may not be suicidal, but they're saying, you know, I'm ready to go to heaven. And you hear that an awful lot. And it's a good, healthy thing, but they're wondering, why am I still here? Especially when they're in the nursing home. Why does God want me still here? And some of them, I joke with them just saying, because he doesn't want you in heaven yet. But, you know, but you have to know who you can joke with when you say something like that. But it's the significance. It's giving them, you got purpose. In fact, one of the most important things I like to tell them is that you realize that you are an example. How you are weathering the storm is encouraging not only the people around you, but even for the person, I don't know if you've ever had the unique, when you've given a gift to somebody else and you try to bless them, they blessed you more. And you're really blessing them an awful lot. And when you bless them, I'm pretty confident they're going to bless you right back. They will appreciate what you have just done for them.
I have one more thing to say too, is that when you're going, a teacher over at St. Paul's School used to take a group of her 5th graders once a month over to Whispering Pines Nursing Home. And they would spend a long, you know, like an hour or two with the seniors. They were assigned a senior, and they were all year. And the experience was amazing, but it's hard to get started. It's hard to sometimes, especially if kids don't have, you know, grandparents that are elderly, they can, you know, older people can kind of look a little bit scary to people. They've got a lot of wrinkles, you know, things, a lot of aging that's going on. And she used to say, you have to come up with 20 things you're going to talk about. The first time they would meet them, there were no gifts, there was nothing. You were going to get to know your person. What did you used to do when, you know, for your work? Did you ever go on a vacation? You know, whatever their kids are, help them to come up with how they're going to converse with somebody. And then you just go and get to know your person. And then it's kind of scary too a little bit sometimes because their person throughout that course of the year actually passed away. So then they were, you know, you would deal with sadness but explaining that joy of, you know, where are they now? So it's all a learning and growth process, you know, for teaching kids too. And then let them see the magic of what happens. See the magic of what happens as they get to know their person. And then the little romances that they try to put together because they are single. And they would take their wheelchairs over and park them next to, you know, somebody else. I mean, it's just little joys, you know,
Tammy, you're right on there. You're right on with the Holy Spirit. My next question was to Do you have any advice for Christian parents in their discussions with their children regarding how to treat seniors and how to interact with seniors? So thank you. Anybody else want to? Yes.
Especially for the younger children. My children have been going to my work ever since they were young, but there's a lot. So I didn't talk about it going into it, but I do recommend if you have younger children that are going to be participating in this, to and they haven't been exposed to a nursing home before, or maybe their great-grandparents have already passed away, but prepare them. So, do you know where we're going today? Do you know what to expect? I want to tell you a little bit about it, because it's so interesting when you leave to hear what their comments are, especially when they're young. Like, why are everybody in those chairs with the wheels? And a lot of, and this is one of the things, is that a lot of the ladies, which, I can't blame them, are very, they want to touch you and they want to hold your hands. And sometimes that's a little bit, especially for the younger children, a little bit intimidating when all these people want to reach out and to touch you. And so sometimes, some of my kids are willing and some of them aren't willing to do that. But I encourage a lot of high fives. I have boys. Those are, really appropriate, and they can, that brief contact. But, before you go, try to talk to them about what to expect. So maybe they're less intimidated when they get there, and it doesn't scare them, and then they don't want to go back. So have an open discussion before you go about what to expect.
And I think as a parent, all of us on our team, we go in with this, how can I make this the best 15 minutes of this person's life? How can I make this the best 8 hours of the time when I'm there? And then when you go in and you ask God to be a part of that, you just have to let go of them, because you know that your presence, your time with them is in God's hands. So just say, how can I make this the best time? And in all honesty, when I'm doing senior care, sometimes that means staying out of their way. Sometimes if they're having a bad day and they're cranky or, whatever, like we all get, sometimes the best thing that I can do is stay in the kitchen, busy myself, doing dishes. It's not always being right there. So if you run into a situation where you feel like it's not quite right, that's okay, because they're where they're at, and you just have to know that maybe your presence is enough. Just being, there in another part, or being a part of this, like this, whatever's happening on Tuesday. Your presence, it doesn't have to be, if you walk away with something that isn't special right then and there, that's okay, because your presence is, and it's all in God's hands. It's all in His hands.
I say it's their filters. They don't have the filters like we do. Because they will tell you how bad you look at those hands. And heartbeats and all their friends.
Or when you're pregnant. Are you having twins?
Yeah. What is that baby still? No. Yeah, they have no filters. So don't take anything they say personally.
That's true.
Biggest thing, again, I think, is to show respect. Throughout the years, we have lost the ability of showing respect. You think about how when they love to be addressed as Mr. and Mrs. Now, if you were called that, you would say, no, that's not me, that's my dad, or my mom, or whatever. But think about addressing them with respect. These people have gone through the Great Depression and World War II. Those memories are vivid. And it's affected the way they lived and operated. And when you think that my generation, the generation, and the next generation, it really, it's almost like we don't understand that, but you need to respect it. And so when you're addressing them, again, be mindful of again, that, yeah, they might have lost it in different ways, their filters and everything else, but you be the respectful one. As one person said, when one of these people have died, you've lost a library. You have lost a very valuable resource for the whole community. That demands and deserves respect.
And this generation, we refer to them as the greatest generation ever. And there's a reason for that. This is a generation that did without, or they were happy to do that. They picked themselves up by their bootstraps when they had nothing, and they took care of their families, they took care of themselves, they fought for this country. And accepting outside help is not their comfort level. Me, I'm gonna have no problem dialing up somebody to come over and help me. You know, that's me. That is not them. So to accept outside help. But if they have served in the military, you're right. That is something that they carry with them. It's very vivid, and they have loved serving their country and providing the freedoms and the dignities that we have today. So we do owe that respect.
God, family, and country is a big phrase. And you don't understand what they do.
I have a question.
Sure.
So like you talk about how to treat them and all that, but so I tell me and my daughter, let's go to a nursing home. It's like making a cold call to a nursing home. You know, she's been exposed, she's gone to see family and friends there, but what do we do if we just go to visit? I mean, you walk in and say, hey, can you hook me up with somebody, or, you know what I'm saying?
People do that.
Do they?
Usually they connect it to the activity director or the social worker. I mean, if you have something in particular in mind that you want to visit with, then we could try and hook you up with who you want to be with.
Yeah, or like you mentioned, some people have nobody. So then, do you call ahead and say, hey, I'm going to, bring my daughter, and, is there somebody in need that needs to help me? Is that what you?
I would call that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get a hold of the staff and just say, is there anybody like that?
Okay.
And if you've got kids that play a musical instrument and you want to put 2 or 3 of them together and go to St. Agnes, or want to go to any of the facilities, you just call up any of those activities. They're going to give you a time and put you right in there.
Mark, you said what?
My dad's over at Avalon Springs right now. On the first Wednesday of the month, Father Kevin has Mass over there. I was doing some advanced planning right now. The only 2 Wednesdays that are available for families to use in the summer are 4th of July week and the first week in August. And what we do is we physically escort, put residents inside of wheelchairs, and we bring them down to a common area to have Mass. My dad used to live over at Pines.
Okay. What's his name?
George Sewell.
Ah, I still visit George over there at home. Great.
The point being, if you want to do something, go on the first Wednesday of the month. The Mass is at 10 o'clock. Show up at 9:30.
We do that.
And find out where the residents are and help them get to the Mass.
St. Paul's has Mass at the Willows and at all the nursing homes. Our day is the second Wednesday of every month. And then I talked to Karen Malika into being my rosary lady. So she brings communion and rosary every Monday. And they always need help.
She also organizes a group that goes around and sings to the seniors.
Oh, yeah, that's
Amy?
They also love dogs, especially small dogs.
Yeah.
So you have to let somebody know that you're bringing a dog. I'm not sure that all facilities will allow them, but little old ladies really love dogs. I mean, especially if they sit in their laps.
If you do that, make sure you have your vet records with you when you hop in with your dog, because I'll let you come in, but.
So I'm wondering too, kind of along the same lines, if there are ways, so in addition to bringing your kids to Mass, I love this project, by the way, and we're introducing kids to this, so it'd be great to continue. But I'm thinking about like some of the younger ones, if there were opportunities to bring a group of kids, like our oldest is learning to read, and he could sit on the lap of somebody and read, or can we do it together as a group in some way, instead of, like you're saying, sort of the cold calling? Can I just come on a Wednesday afternoon if we had a group of kids that could go see regularly? Then I don't know how we set that up. So.
Yeah.
Ask for the activities director at any, facility, and they'll help you to orchestrate whatever it is your group of people. And I do think taking friends when you're doing it is easier.
Yes.
And then once you get comfortable, they get comfortable. That's why I said let see what miracles happen. through it, because it's always a little intimidating and scary at first, but the more you go, the more comfortable you get.
And then it gets in their minds about how wonderful it is. When we leave, I always say, because again, my children are still very young, do you realize what you just did? Well, what do you mean? Like, you made their day. When they got to touch you, when they got to ask you a question or what your name was, you touched their day. That was probably the highlight of their day. And then afterwards, then you'll be driving and, oh, there's your work, Mom. When are we going to go see your friends again? When are we going to go see your friends? We went blueberry picking one year, and when we were done, they go, can we take some blueberries to your friends at work? And I was like, so I called and I was like, can I drop off, because I know you can safely eat them. We bring blueberries, and I rinsed them and put them in the cups, and we went around and we gave out blueberries, but that wasn't my idea. That was my children, and they were probably like 6, at the time. And it's just wonderful to see how they start to enjoy it just as much as the elderly people that, are enjoying it. But it's an amazing thing that happens.
Great, yes, Angie.
Our children grew up learning our supermoons because Alice is both with parents, and the most unintimidating time to go is what you guys said, the activities time, because you'll have one director, and then you have, and depending on the abilities of the residents, that activities director is kind of moving all the pieces. I mean, they literally play life-size checkered games and life-size board games, but that resident is actually moving. The residents kind of just sit around and they'll say, oh, Mary, you get to move 3 spaces. So when our kids go, our kids are the ones that help the director, and the residents eat them up. I mean, especially Ruben and his hair, they just love them. I mean, but the affection, the physical affection is something else. They do. They love seeing kids there. So, and then the kids find it fun. Instead of just going around, and sometimes there's, you might want to warn them, depending, you guys said it's less of nursing home or the smell is usually something.
Smells happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. But just warn the kids to expect it so they're not saying, oh.
That's a good thing. And when you think about the human touch, most of them don't have their spouse to hug, to kiss. Many of them are alone. They don't have grandchildren. They don't have somebody who is coming and actually touching them. So to be able to reach out, that's why they're starved. Oh yeah, they are starved for that touch. So, it doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be a lot.
This actually made me think of something that I knew from a person who worked in a beauty shop. She would just go in and do hand massages. Just really simple, just with cream and just, and I'm thinking like, I've got an 8th grader at work who could do that kind of thing. But it allows them to just talk. It gives them the touch. It's easy to do. You have a little lotion and anybody could do it. So that may be another thing.
And the smell.
Yeah, they smell so good.
And my daughter has been in nursing homes before, and this was something I remember from the first time she went that really kind of threw her off guard. A lot of times they won't remember the children's names. And my daughter got kind of offensive at first, and then realized that it was probably, I told her it was probably their grandchild's name or their children's name that don't come to see him as often as they like, and they kind of reflect that person onto her. And once she realized it, she was fine, but we go see a friend, and every little old lady would be trailing behind her, calling her all these different names. And she's like, but yeah, it was something that kind of caught her off guard the first time she went, so that's something to keep in mind as well.
I think the high school offers, how often is it?
It's twice a month.
Twice a month. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Veronica. Yeah. You organize it, don't you?
No. Our social worker does it with Mrs. Patasha.
Okay. Twice a month on Monday?
Right after school, and then they can come home and take the late bus back home.
Okay, so, and there is a bus that takes them.
Yes.
From what I understand, maybe only 6 kids participate?
There were more last
from
year.
St. T's?
Yeah, there were more last year. There are some from St. T's that go this year. Last year they were from 9th through 12th grade. And I would say the residents are very competitive with Sorry. And they did not take
Sorry?
We played Sorry. They did not take any pity on me not having ever played Sorry. They were very competitive.
Okay. The kids love it, yeah. So encourage your kids if they're, if
My
they're
father
not.
participates in that, and it's not extremely shy, Lon, and he has track practice, and he will willingly skip track practice.
To go to that? Yeah, that's great.
If you want some real fun, and we're not a nursing home, remember, our residents are getting into Wii bowling. Big time stuff. They wanted to bring in additional TVs, but we don't have enough equipment for them. But yeah, that's starting to be a growing thing as much as they fear computers. No, we don't need more equipment. We don't have space to put it in.
I have a shift gear slightly here. So in your role and in your facilities or the facilities you visited, is there anything that you see that's either not being addressed or being addressed poorly for whatever reason that as Christian parents we can kind of encourage each other and our children to create change for the future? Are there things that we can try to look at fixing, for example, or changing or adding regarding senior care? This is a question they weren't prepared for.
I think you go back to the respect and then that they're actually a person, they were a person, they may not be the person that they were. And if you treat them like a person, you will not believe it. You walk down the hallway and you greet them by name, it shocks them. Because how do you remember my name? I'm like, because I met you the other day. I just wanted to say good morning. You know what I mean? That, to me, that is like the most amazing thing. Just treating them like a person. They do have a lot to offer, even if they are confused.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing that I notice because I'm in homes and, working with families, so it's a little bit different, is that, and it all goes back to the respect and the dignity, but sometimes acknowledge, when somebody has really memory care, memory issues, it doesn't do any good to point out that they aren't remembering or they're forgetting. And it's a habit that we have saying, oh, Mom, you remember, or don't you remember? And no, it is not there. So when you say, don't you remember, or can't you remember, it's pointing out a deficiency. So just not going there in that type of, and it's hard because it takes a language change, on our part, but to just say, I remember back when, this was happening, or this trip, or something that you want to go, trying not to dwell on the fact that they've already forgotten, and it's somewhere they should be remembering that, because they're just not, at a certain point you just lose that. So, and you don't want to, you don't want to shut them down, because then they dwell on the fact that, oh, I don't remember, I don't have that. And then they lose wherever they were trying to go, with it.
When you try to, you just kind of got to go with what they're doing. I'll use therapeutic fibs. I'll be the first one. I got caught on it once. I told the lady her car wasn't in the car and she had to have a driver's license. She whipped her driver's license out of it. So
expired.
It was about 10 years expired. But yeah, when you tell them, oh, you should remember that, or oh, like we have to do interviews with them. How many children did you have? What religion are you? And you can tell when you first start talking to them if they're not going to be able to process that or tell you. So you kind of switched your gears and saying, oh, I have 2 kids and I go to the Catholic Church or something, because they get mad at you. You don't want them to have this catastrophic and they'll never come back to my room. I mean, that's happened before too.
Yeah, they're living in a moment, that moment right there. So when you're bringing your conversation, we better be talking about the flowers that you just picked in the garden that you have, if your person isn't, capable of going back, but so just meet them where they're at that particular time.
I say amen for that, because you have to go with the flow. Don't fight it. And I say that to especially the kids of these. Don't fight with your mom and dad, because they might have forgotten the memory. One of the saddest things that I deal with is that as I get to know the residents, they'll know me better than their own kids. And it hurts your feelings, but don't fight with them. That's not where you go with it. Continue to love them and show them the respect. One of the experiences that I personally had back in 2006 is that I had a blood infection. I was on the highest antibiotic for over 5 weeks to kill it. I continually, with all my knowledge, asked the same question over and over and never could remember the answer. My family kept on saying, "You already asked that question." I didn't remember that, nor their answer. And it wasn't until the infection was gone that then I say, "Oh yeah, I did ask that question." But drugs can do an awful lot to you, even the ones that are trying to cure you. And when you're dealing with the mental, dementia type of things, they may never get that back. They may never remember. And so having personal experience with that, I mean, we still laugh about it today because I kept on telling people I'm fine. And I felt fine in my own world. And so I'd often tell my family, "Don't disturb me, I'm fine in my own world." But they are fine in the moment. It's just not your moment. And so don't fight.
Well, I had an experience with my dad. He was in a care facility for rehab. And shoot, I'm going to tear up too. So while he was in the rehab, I mean, obviously we're all very worried. We were all visiting him. It was very difficult to be there and to see him there. He had dementia, so he was still our dad as we remembered him. And I have to be honest with you, it was the speech therapist who came and was working with him. And she was so cute and sweet in the way she interacted with him because she was there with him in that moment. And he became, even though his mind was so gone, he became charming and cute and sweet in interacting with her because she was meeting him where he was, and I think we probably all tried to do that, but seeing that as a speech therapist, and if a family member is there seeing you, you're ministering to them too, because then it was okay again to understand that that's where he was at that time, and so we were all able to approach it in a little different way. So thank you for that gift. Maybe you didn't even think of that while you were considering how you were ministering and sharing your faith.
This might seem a little bit off, but it kind of answers your question. Unfortunately, at the end of life, when there's a lot of important decisions that are to be made, that what that person would or wouldn't want, and if they're cognitively able to help make those decisions. I actually just had this discussion with my parents in the last couple weeks. Please talk to your parents about what their wishes are, or have your mom or dad speak to each other. Living wills are great. However, sometimes I deal a lot with the feeding tubes, and you may say you do or do not want a feeding tube to prolong life, but that's such a vague definition. Please talk to your family about what you want, because what we see is that when the time comes to make decisions, that the family's divided, and the person themselves is not able to make the decision. They're not capable, and then you have families who start fighting over, I think he would have wanted this, I don't think he would have wanted this, and then it divides the family, and it's terrible. So
I think too, just going back to what we talked about earlier, when you go out, when you meet with people and you meet them where they are, wherever they are, you're being Jesus. I mean, that is what What was that?
Jesus.
Okay, yeah, maybe, yeah, okay. She hopped up. Cindy. But you are. Jesus met people where they were. He talked to them about what was going on in their lives. If there were, weeds and wheat and things on the ground, he told a parable about that. If there were sheep in the fields, he talked about that. He talked about whatever was going on in the moment, and that's what we want to do with folks. Yes?
I kind of want to hit on a topic that you just mentioned, is that I'm on the physician network side of the physician practice side, and that's a really good key, is that getting people, even at young ages, to talk about with your physicians, what your needs are, what you want, before you're even in that sort of situation. So me at my age have it documented, they know exactly what I want, so no one has to fight over this. It's a new thing that people are pushing now, and that people are very reluctant to want to talk about that when they're healthy, but when you talk about it when you're healthy, you are making the decisions that you want, and then everyone will respect and give you the dignity that you wanted when you were.
And just to point out, to go on that, a living will is not a do not resuscitate.
No,
There are very separate, there are different forms. So even though somebody has and it's a private thing, so it's hard. So even though your parents may say, yes, I have a living will, understanding and getting somebody on board with what, and so making sure that they understand that that may not have a do not resuscitate aspect to it. They are separate forms, and they both need to be, if you want to have a do not resuscitate, it has to be specifically stated.
There's a state form now that's statewide that so my dad had a heart attack or stroke at home, and the EMTs came, so they have to take care of him to get him to the hospital, but we had a do not resuscitate from every hospital that he'd ever been at, but nobody would accept it. And now Indiana has a form that's called a post form that you can have, and you make sure you get your mom that, because if she dies at home, they won't resuscitate her.
Just a follow-up to what we're talking about, and it's a great point, because and I'm sure there are plenty of other people here who have lived through this scenario, but when that stuff isn't taken care of, what resources are there for the family to help figure out what help there is? Because we can see now, my husband's mom had a stroke 2 years ago and has been on a feeding tube for that 2 years. She's home with us. We provide that care. We're lucky that we're able to for her. But as it progresses and you don't have a lot of outside help, how do you find out what to do next? How do you find out about how do you qualify for respite care for my sister-in-law and my husband who have been taken care of for 24 hours a day for 2.5 years? How do you, where are those resources and how do you find them?
I know that's a lot of what social workers do.
You know, you can reach out to, if you reach out to a facility, they can help you to find out exactly what it is. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of support for non-medical services if they do not qualify for being in a facility. That is out of pocket, and that is extremely unfortunate. If Medicare could give a little bit of support, there are lots of seniors who need 2 hours of support in the morning, 2 hours of support midday, 2 hours of support at night, 6 hours total, and there is no financial help out there. And that could just improve the quality of their life huge and keep them where they're at for longer. Unfortunately, it's out of pocket, private pay, and it's hard.
But even there, then, how do you find this? Even if I can take it offline, but it's finding those resources when you're in that scenario, when you've left the hospital and you're not in a facility. It's finding the answer. We've struggled with finding how to get help.
Go ahead.
There is a resource booklet that I know our CEO, Lori Mull at Pines Village, served on a community committee to find resources for elderly residents. And so there is a particular book on out there, and if you can't find it anywhere, come on over to Pines Village. We have plenty of those booklets. And again, it obviously will have our name in it, but the other ones as well for the nursing homes. But like I said, the social worker in the different organizations should be able to help out an awful lot is finding the stuff. There's a lot of different resources for veterans, which a lot of these people are dealing with, as well as, you really have to know the Medicare system better than the government.
So we're running short on time. Real quick, one question.
It's just a quick comment. I teach in the College of Nursing here. Oftentimes families will post something on the wall, and just with phone number tears, And so recognizing they're not nurses yet, but still able to help us.
Thank you. You know, the Forest end-of-life sessions are discussing some of these topics that they're having, and I know not everybody can go to them, but they are recording them, so they'll be available. If, you know, maybe we could discuss having something in the future to kind of, you know, offer that, group discussions, maybe have other workshops about this at other times. Real quick?
Yes, the Alzheimer's Association has a vast amount of free educational programs that we do regularly, so that's another one.
So class is about ended, the kids are about done. If anybody has room or wants to offer to the catechist, take some of the items over to the St. John of the Cross room at church, that would be very helpful. But please thank our panel for being here.